Transmite para usted Radio Anáhuac Querétaro, transmitiendo desde el Centro de Medios de la Universidad Anáhuac Querétaro, ubicada en Circuito Universidades número 1, El Marqués Querétaro, una estación de la Escuela de Comunicación y Dirección de Empresas de Entretenimiento de la Universidad Anáhuac Querétaro.
Radio Anáhuac Querétaro, amplía tus sentidos. Welcome to the Arcade, your favorite show in gaming, with your host, David Torres. Sit back and enjoy the show. All your favorite games are here at the Arcade. Let's play. Ready to play? Insert coin. And welcome everybody to another show of the Arcade. It's finally great to be back again here on this show. I am David Torres. You know me. Hi. A bit of an interesting day today getting here to the university. Transportation can sometimes be difficult. But anyway, on that note, I am here ready to give you guys a show, as I always do, here on the Arcade, talking about video games. And today I'm actually kind of really excited. Like, it was kind of a topic that I was like, as I was researching or like looking at different ideas for topics, there was like two game genres that I really wanted to do, and then I was like, wait, okay, like I can add this third one, and it could be like all like globally connected. So basically, for the next 3 weeks, we have another set of conjoined episodes, so to speak, and I'm actually really excited about it. So today we're going to be talking a little bit more globally about what action games are. So obviously in Insert Coin, we're going to be talking about action games as a whole. In virtual reality, we're going to talk about like the benefits of playing action games. And in Experience Points, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite games of all time, which we'll get more into a little bit sooner, or in a moment. And then patch notes, as per usual, we have news. So, since we're already kind of starting the show a little bit late today, let's just jump straight ahead into the content for Insert Coin. So, action games, what are they? Basically, action games, it's a very massive genre of games, and there's actually like a lot of subgenres to it that are big enough in their own right to be considered genres, like even though ultimately they're all just subgenres of action. So basically, these games, the action genre, is basically all of that emphasizes physical challenges. This is physical challenges when it comes to hand-eye coordination, reaction time, very fast-paced decision-making, and stuff of the sort. So this genre includes a huge amount of subgenres to it, from fighting games to platformers, which was actually the very first episode of the Arcade here. Shooter games, obviously, it's like a massive one. And obviously there's also like a lot of action games that are kind of very unique in their own right. And honestly, that's kind of the biggest reason why I decided to do this particular episode, because what we're talking about in Experience Points, it's an action game, but it's like so difficult to categorize, and I feel like that's a very particular thing with action games. Mostly arcade games are considered action games or fall into the action game category. So something like Pac-Man, for example, that you can't really like classify it as a platformer, it's still an action game because, you know, you have to do quick decision making, quick precise turns and movements, and like figuring out the maze. So it all kind of falls into this action game category, which I found that it was like really, really cool just how diverse action games can be. And again, that's why it just like brings up all of these different subgenres, from the platformers to the fighters, shooters, and like even them, all three of those are big enough to be considered as genres in their own right. So yeah, like a lot of like the big like characteristics in action games, it's like these quick response times and quick like very skill based things to them. And this is actually like very like this contributed a lot into them being like arcade games to begin with, because obviously in arcades, like, you know, they're trying to make money. They try to make it so that you can fail at them repeatedly and obviously give them money repeatedly. So naturally, with like an easy game, like, you know, that won't happen as much. Or with some sort of like very luck-based game, like, yeah, it might happen a lot, but like people might get burnt out on just like luck-based stuff. And so like these skill-based games is what like really drives forward that sentiment of like, okay, like I can do this, I can keep trying. And so it's actually very interesting looking at the history of action games and how tightly knit it is with arcades and arcade culture. And so it was something that I found really, really interesting while I was researching for this episode. Now, on that note, though, we are going to go into our first song break of the day. This is actually the second time where I kind of, I like making an executive decision and saying all 3 songs are going to be from the same game or game franchise. Well, I guess back in the horror days, it was from the same, like, Kim Petras. From the same Kim Petras, yes. Same person. and yeah, I figured, you know what? I don't know when else I'm going to be able to talk about the game that we're talking about in experience points, so I'm going to milk it because the music in this game is absolutely fantastic, and I just decided, okay, you know what? I'm bringing 3 of these songs. No one can tell me anything. They are fantastic, and let's get into it. So, this very first song is Katamari on the Rocks from Katamari Damacy. So why don't we go listen to this, and we'll be right back with more here in the arcade. All your favorite games are here at the arcade. Only on Radio Nahua Querétaro. Amplía tus sentidos.
Feels so good. 素敵なアフタヌーン。プラチナみんな yeah。固めて転がす I love you いつでも smile for you。君だけにラム。Hey so頑張らなくちゃ。お揃いの T シャツ、hey! 手編みのマフラーと、oh yeah! ハートに目白押し、ギターへ say goodbye、バイバイ。みんな固めてしまいましょう。奮発しちゃいます。
All your favorite games are here at the arcade. Only on Radio Nahuatl Querétaro. Amplía tus sentidos. From the screen to the streets. Virtual reality. And we are back with more here on the arcade on Radio Nahuatl Querétaro. I am your host, David Torres, and today we are talking about action video games. So, action video games, going into virtual reality, basically, what I wanted to really kind of discuss in this particular virtual reality is about how video games can actually improve the development of certain cognitive functions. And actually, this is something that we have already kind of touched upon a little bit here on this show, especially like in the first episode of this season, where I kind of talked about more generally the effects of video games as a whole, and really a lot of those ring true for action video games specifically as well. And to be fair, honestly, when we talk about video games, as we mentioned in the previous one, the vast majority of video games do actually kind of end up falling under action video games. I mean, RPGs, for example, where it's more turn-based, those are not action RPGs, just by definition, but, you know, if you pick a random game, like, from your more famous video games nowadays, I mean, your Marios, your Zeldas, your, I don't know, Elden Ring is really big right now. I really need to get to play that game, too. I feel like I'm failing as a gamer, but okay, let's not get sidetracked that quickly, David. Come on. But yeah, like basically all of those games are of different variety of action games. So really, when you think about most video games, you are kind of thinking about action games, and so like a lot of these benefits have been proven true. Like it's actually like over a decade ago. There's already been like research that has shown that video games, among the things, well, action video games, we're talking about action video games, about like within the kind of things that they help improve is perceptual decision making, or the ability to identify and select like specific targets in like a different environment, like in a wild environment, so to speak. Very much so, along with that, is speed of processing, which is basically just kind of how quickly you can like react to something. Ability to overcome attention capture, or how to maintain focus on a goal in the face of distractions. So basically, like, you know, in video games you often have like 5,000 things going on at a time, and you kind of have to pay light attention to all of them, but still mainly pay attention to the main one. And so obviously that's like a big thing that video games help. Then also abilities to like remember visually presented information. So pattern recognition, that kind of stuff is also very improved by video games. And obviously multitasking is like a big one that video games like helps improve. As we mentioned before, like, you know, oftentimes there's like 5,000 things that you have to take into account when playing a video game, and you know, that multitasking aspect, it's definitely something that is like you know, trained through playing video games. Now, as to, I feel like we've talked a lot about how video games help like improve these, or rather, the benefits of playing video games and developing or improving these skills. But I guess what it's actually really interesting, and like I found on this article, edutopia.org, you know, cite your sources. And it kind of like really got me thinking, and it's something that I kind of want to like really take this time to analyze a little bit, is what exactly about video games leads to the developing of these benefits. So basically, like, I'm gonna cite this paragraph from this article. Researchers propose that the fast-paced, dynamic, unpredictable nature of action video games might be training people to search for and identify patterns in the environment, building the metacognitive skill of learning to learn. In other words, because these games require players to make decisions based on lots of noisy information, they generate strategies to pick up regularities and patterns that seem to teach them how to use this ability to more quickly and effectively learn new tasks. So that's actually something that, like, really, that, like, as I was reading and doing my research for this episode, like, that kind of, like, really sat very interestingly with me, because it's like, yeah, like, through playing video games, obviously, like, think about, for example, Mario Bros. Like, I've seen a lot of like interviews about how the design of the very first Mario world is kind of a masterclass in game design, because it really kind of teaches you a lot of the things through its own design. So basically, through like you get into the world, there's some blocks. If you jump on them or jump onto them, you realize that, okay, something good happens if you hit these blocks. Then comes a Goomba, and like if you don't move, you're gonna get killed, which is again kind of like teaching you, okay, these things are bad. If you then jump over it, you'll realize, okay, that's a way to like avoid these. If you jump onto them, and that's how you realize, okay, this is a way to kill them. So it's kind of like a lot of these very subtle ways of teaching people these variables as they go, and teaching these patterns to people so that they better understand how the game works. And really, that is something that happens in basically all video games. When you think about it, like, there is always that kind of learning process that you have to learn and adapt in a video game. And really, this happens in every video game, especially, like, for example, I mean, this might be spoiler alert for our next two episodes. When you think about, like, for example, fighting games or shooter games, where you often are playing with people, it helps also develop that pattern recognition of learning the patterns of your opponent, so that you can better adapt to play against them. So it has a lot of this really interesting, like, it becomes really interesting when you think about, like, how you're supposed to learn through video games, or learn the video game, while also being aware in the moment of how to separate the different kind of stimuli that is being thrown at you in the moment. And so, like, this is something that just, like, really becomes, like, very interesting to me, especially when you consider, like, how the origin of these video games are. Like, back when I mentioned that these are meant to be skill-based games, really the way to get better at them is to improve the skills on these games. And really, these are skills that can be really useful for generating a lot of skills, both in-game and outside of game, you know, in the non-virtual reality, so to speak. But okay, unfortunately for now, that is it for this segment. So we are going to go off into our second song of the game. You know, keeping up with our Katamari music special today. This is Lonely Rolling Star from Katamari Damacy. So we're going to go and listen to this, and we will be right back with more here on the arcade. All your favorite games are here at the arcade. Only on Radio Nahua Querétaro. Amplía tus sentidos. All your favorite games are here at the arcade. Only on Radio Nahuatl Querétaro. Amplía tus sentidos. The games that are more than just a game. Experience points. And we are back with more here on the arcade on Radio Nahuatl Querétaro. I am your host, David Torres, and we have reached experience points for this week. I am so excited to that I have finally found a way to talk about this game, because I think it's a game that needs to be screamed from the rooftops, that needs to be played by every single person in this planet. I absolutely adore this game. And I mean, it is considered a cult classic. I think it should just be a general classic because it's a fantastic game. This game is none other than Katamari Damacy. And really, I'm talking about the series in general, but the series in general is fantastic. I'm talking about Katamari Damacy because it's, well, A, the first game of the series, and B, the most easily accessible game nowadays. So that's kind of that. That's kind of that balance. So I'm focusing on Katamari Damacy. Now, what in the world am I talking about? What are these words? What have I just said? Honestly, I still to this day don't know what Damacy means, but Katamari. Basically, the game is. I just feel already insane talking about this. This game is trippy. And so basically the plot of this very first game is the king of all cosmos, who happens to be your father in this game, basically went and accidentally destroyed all stars in the universe. And so basically, as every good narcissistic parent, it falls onto the children to fix up the problems. And so basically, in order to fix the problems, the prince, as the playable character in this game, basically you have to push a highly adhesive ball through the world, and basically everything that you touch with this ball, as long as it's smaller than the ball itself, will be attached to it. And basically through this means you grow the ball bigger and bigger, and then eventually it becomes a star or a constellation, or, well, in one level it becomes the moon. So I know that, as I'm just trying to describe it, I already feel kind of insane. But basically, think about a snowball, where you roll it around, the typical thing of it's rolling a snowball around and it becomes bigger as it goes. Just that instead of collecting snow, you can collect anything from fruit, mice, cats, books, cars, people, houses, entire islands. I love this game. It is I don't know if you've for those of you who have been seeing the music art on these music breaks, where you basically have that massive ball, a rainbow over it, a city being destroyed, and just two cows randomly in the foreground. Yeah, that's basically the vibe of the game. It is so fun, so high energy, so crazy. And one thing that I also really appreciate about this game is basically it's completely set up in Japan, and so it has a lot of very big Japanese culture things to it. So, for those of us who enjoy Japanese stuff, that's definitely a very fun aspect to it. And yeah, I don't know, there's just such a power trip that you get through playing this game, because again, the more that you grow the Katamari, that's the name of the ball in question, the bigger and more absurd things that you can pick up. So you can pick up people and hear them scream as you're picking them up. You can pick up cars. You can pick up buildings. Can pick up islands. And it's just such a power trip. I really don't know what better way to describe it. It is so interesting. When it comes to the gameplay in and of itself, it's very, very cool. Like basically the whole power trip of you pick up everything. Also, like, it's really interesting to see how you can clean out entire spaces. How, like, once the ball gets big enough, you can return to another place and, like, start collecting things that you couldn't have even imagined that you were going to be able to pick up. And so it also has kind of like really interesting themes. For the most part, well, yeah, basically in every level you have like a time limit. So you need to grow the ball this big in this time limit. But then there's also some other levels that are really interesting that are like constellation levels. So for example, for making the constellation of Cancer, you have to collect as many crabs as you can possibly get. Or, for example, I think Ursa Major, it's like you have to collect the biggest bear that you can possibly get. So it has like a lot of interesting challenge levels to it as well. And again, it's just so trippy. Like, if you like space, if you like high energy things, like, it is definitely the kind of game for you. It's April 20th. I would say that it's the perfect day to play a game like this. So, like, if you know, you know. But yeah, like, basically, Katamari Damacy, it's absolutely amazing. What breaks my heart a little bit, it's that it's kind of the only game in the series that it's possible to play right now. It actually just recently, like, in, I believe 2018, I want to say. Yeah, 2018, because it came out the same year as Smash Bros. It came out, like, it was re-released on PC and Switch as Katamari Damacy Reroll. So it's basically just like a high-definition remake of the original game. The original game came out in PlayStation 2, like, over a decade ago now. And yeah, there's been a lot of mobile games that have come out. I did try yesterday going to the iOS store to see if there were any there, and I couldn't find any. I do remember playing like a Katamari game, which was just like basically one of those games that you tap, 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 and you know, that's basically the whole gist of it. And I mean, it was interesting for a moment, but I don't know. That kind of game doesn't necessarily call out to me. But yeah, no, like I need more Katamari Damacy games. I just need more people to get onto the bandwagon so that we can force the powers that play to make another Katamari game. Like, that's basically all that I need at this point, because yeah, Katamari, such a fantastic series. And honestly, for what it's worth, like, I don't know, they release FIFA games every year. We don't really need those, like, and people buy them anyway, just like with a reskin. I would be completely okay if we just get a Katamari Damacy game every year with just like a different setting or skin set or whatever. Like, I'd be perfectly fine as long as we get more Katamari games. Because yeah, they're really fun. They're so entertaining, and yeah, like I really kind of want to play when I get home later. I have a lot of things going on this week though, so I might not be able to, but hey, fine. Like, I'll have to figure it out. But anyway, on that note, I think I ranted about this enough. I could have ranted about it for a lot longer, but we started the episode a little bit late, so I have to account for that, unfortunately. But anyway, we're gonna go into our third and last song of the day. This is Katamari on the Swing. This time from the game We Love Katamari, which is the second game in the series. Unfortunately, a lot less findable than its predecessor, but I really hope that they make like a reroll for that one. Anyway, enough rambling. Let's go ahead and listen to this, and we'll be right back with more here on the arcade. All your favorite games are here at the arcade. Only on Radio Nahuatl Querétaro. Amplía tus sentidos.
Come on, everybody! the swing. Na 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 na, Katamari on the swing. 今始まるよ君と僕の未体験アドベンチャー。スカイ照らしてよ、お日様は僕らのスポットライトさ。Oh smile 聞こえるよ、都会のシャレたスイングビート踊ろうよ。 Dance 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 くるくる回る雲を突き抜けて君と転がりたい愛のかけらを集め空に浮かべよう。 Yeah, how can miss the sunshine.
All your favorite games are here at the arcade. Only on Radio Nahua Querétaro. Amplía tus sentidos. A new update just dropped. Patch notes. And we are back with more here on the arcade on Radio Nahua Querétaro. I am your host, David Torres. And we have reached patch notes for the day, our final segment. After, oh my god, so much good music. I love the music in Katamari Damacy. Okay, enough, David. We have already spoken about that game. Enough. But now, let's move on to the news for the week. Well, really, it's kind of like the news for the last 2 weeks, though most of these news are kind of more recent. But anyway, so basically, one big news that I was kind of frustrated, or, well, I don't know frustrated. I'm a little bit ambivalent about it. Basically, both Xbox and PlayStation are looking into ways to add ads in their free-to-play games. Kind of like how it happens in mobile games, where, like, you know, after playing for a while, you get a random ad, and it kind of makes things less than enjoyable. Yeah, they're basically looking into bringing that into free-to-play games on these platforms, which, I mean, okay, like, again, y'all know me. I've never been a PlayStation and Xbox gamer ever. There's free-to-play games on those platforms. Like, I know that there's definitely some on PC. I don't think I've ever seen on any of them on Switch, though. But basically, the way that they're trying to make them, though, I'm not, like, at least, like, I haven't really looked at what the Xbox statement on this was, but basically from what I'm looking at and how they want to do it with PlayStation is that they basically want to make it so that, like, the ads are kind of more seamless into the game. So, like, if there's a billboard in a game, like, it has an actual real life ad, which I don't know. Like, I'm also kind of ambivalent on that, because then, like, I'm pretty sure I mean, I, as a communications major, I probably need to know this, and probably as a communications major who's currently taking a communication law class, I probably should know this better. But I'm pretty sure, like, there's something that, like, you know, it has to be explicitly known where there's an ad in a piece of media. So I mean, and I guess they can just probably, like, you know, solve that with, like, maybe a pop-up or, like, a little bar message. But, you know, it was a kind of thing that I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, ultimately, though, the idea is to find ways for, like, game developers to monetize their games through these ads, which, you know, I definitely cannot fault them for that. Like, you know, it's fair for creators to get paid for their creations. You know, I just hope that it doesn't happen in a way where it's, like, irritating or something. But yeah, they're also, like, trying to implement ways so that, like, you know, players can watch ads to get a reward, kind of like how it happens in most, like, mobile games. And honestly, in my experience, the mobile games that do it right is when they don't have pop-up ads randomly, but instead they just give you ads for a reward, and, like, I end up watching those ads, well, playing them. I kind of use them as an excuse to disconnect from the game momentarily, but you know what I mean. Like, I think it's a lot more functional and enjoyable if they do it that way. But anyway, I kind of already blew the entirety of the time that I had for this segment on that. However, before we finish off completely, though, one bit of news that was very interesting is that apparently Nintendo Switch Online is going to have a Game Boy Advance emulator. Like, this was recently leaked by a data mine, and so it seems like there's several, like, games coming to the Switch from the Game Boy Advance era, which is really cool. I mean, if I were to guess, these are all definitely gonna be just part of the Nintendo Switch Plus line, or the premium version, the more expensive one that I slowly but surely seem to be a lot more comfortable with the price tag on it, because if they add these games to it, that's definitely going to be very interesting. Like, I would say the second that they add GameCube games to this lineup, that's the second that I'm sold on the price tag that currently is there for the Switch Online Prime. Why do I keep I need to actually research what that thing is called. You know, the big one. So yeah, there seems to be some really interesting games coming on them. It hasn't officially been announced yet, obviously, because this was a leak. But if this is a show of things that are coming, then I am actually really, really interesting. So I'm definitely looking forward to this, to see what more they add. I still have my fingers crossed for GameCube games on on the Switch. But yeah. Anyway, on that note though, we have reached the end for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I enjoyed talking about all these action games and finally getting a chance to talk about Katamari Damacy ad nauseum. But yeah, so on that note, thank you so much for everyone watching. Thank you so much to Ale for helping us over there with production. And I am David Torres. This has been The Arcade here in Radio Nahuac Querétaro, and I will see you all in the next one. We might have run out of lives for today, but in the arcade, the game is never over. For everything about gaming and what we love about it, join your host, David Torres, every Wednesday at 1:15 p.m. here on the arcade, where we have all of your favorite games. Only on Radio Nahuac Querétaro. Amplía tus sentidos.